A public discussion date has been set. Mayor Won Sang-hoon was in a very difficult mood. In fact, no matter how the discussion progresses and the conclusion is reached, there is nothing to lose after the strong progress. I'm already being scorned, and if things go well I'll build a dormitory, and if things go wrong I end up not building a dormitory. However, Mayor Won Sang-hoon is different. He has no choice but to care about the trend of public opinion whether he wins or loses, unless he will retire from politics at the end of Mayor of Seoul. If you win, the votes from college students will drop, and if you lose, the votes from the residents will drop. I hope you will respond to the discussion. Which chaebol will appear in the public debate. So, of course I thought I would refuse, but I agreed too easily. Anyway, this is what I suggested, and as long as I receive the ball from that side, I have no choice but to leave. While preparing for the debate, Jang Hyun-jun, floor leader of the new political party, came to the city hall and said, "You better be careful, Mayor. As you may know, there is no one who has seen good things with Kang Jin-hoo." Before the discussion we shook hands lightly. "Hello, Mayor." Mayor Won Sang-hoon took my hand and smiled. "Nice to meet you, Mr. Kang. I've always wanted to see you once, and here I am. Let's make a good discussion together today." "Of course." His mouth is smiling, but his expression is not very good. He tapped my hand as if asking for a favor. The discussion moderator is Song Suk-hoon, a famous news anchor. We sat facing each other with the moderator in between, and the audience surrounded us. Cameras all over the place reflected on us. As it is broadcast live on terrestrial channels as well as various video sites such as YouTube, you can watch it in foreign countries. As interest grew, some sites even supported subtitles or simultaneous interpretation. In my opinion, it is a national disgrace to even discuss such a topic. Moderator Song Suk-hoon first introduced the topic of this discussion and opinions of the pros and cons, and the discussion began. Mayor Won Sang-hoon spoke first. "Before we start the discussion, I am not against building dormitories at all. The dormitory issue is a very sensitive matter. So, I want to say that we need to collect the opinions of local residents and adjust the timing and scale. I think CO Kang Jin-hoo will agree on this point." I shook my head. "No. I don't agree at all. When building a dormitory we need to collect the opinions of the students, so why take the opinions of the residents?" Mayor Won Sang-hoon was slightly perplexed, but he said calmly, "The housing issue is a very sensitive issue in the administration of Seoul. It is difficult to immediately allow the construction of large-scale dormitories in conditions of high population density and poor traffic conditions. The Seoul metropolitan government itself is planning to expand housing support for young people, but if the sudden announcement causes confusion in the residents, students, and administration, wouldn't everyone be harmed? Shouldn't we also consider the damage to landlords caused by the supply of dormitories? Then if you say you want to open a restaurant for 5,000 won next to a restaurant that costs 10,000 won per person, then you will have to prevent the restaurant from opening in consideration of damage to the merchants. It is not. However, for a chaebol group to set up a buffet in the middle of a restaurant district and allow it to be eaten for free or for only 1,000 won, it is like telling the restaurant owners to close their doors. Rental business is also a citizen. These are people who make a living by renting a building, so shouldn't they also establish a livelihood plan for them?" I countered that. University students are also citizens. Shouldn't there be a housing plan for college students? Each one-room building would cost more than 1 billion if not enough. Which one would have more problems with livelihood? Mayor Won Sang-hoon refuted my words again. "This is an issue that needs to be thoroughly discussed from a long-term perspective. Of course, there are renters who have a lot of money, but after paying back the loan and deposit, there are others who have to sit down on the street. College students are already sitting on the streets. In order not to become homeless, we have no choice but to live in a gazawan or a semi-basement. So, we want to solve those issues through dialogue and communication with each other. I would like to propose to CO Kang Jin-hoo to create a social consensus organization related to this issue." What else is this? Why should we create a social consensus mechanism on this issue? The situation has not come so far because there is no dialogue or compromise. They say they want to build a place for college students to live with the tuition paid by college students, but isn't that the reason that they didn't build it, because they met opposition each time? But now that I said I was going to build it, they said no. There is a university, so there is a rental business around it, and there is a rental business, so the university is not there. Does it make sense not to build a dormitory for studio business owners? I'm not saying don't build it. I also went to college, and as mayor of Seoul, I have been involved in various welfare activities for young people. Sinaga has saved the budget and prepared a scholarship system for low-income college students, and is supporting young people to find jobs and lead a stable life with the youth allowance and youth passbook. Also, we will create a youth fund so that our young people can take on the challenge of starting a business. As the words got longer, the moderator stopped them. Mayor, this is a place to discuss dormitories, so please refrain from talking about things that are not related. Hey. Anyway, I have been making corrections for the youth, and I would like to say that I sympathize with the difficulties of the youth in this dormitory problem. I agree, but why can't you build it? I'm not saying that I won't be able to do it. I'm saying that I will first create a social consensus mechanism and proceed through a great national compromise. So what the hell is this? Am I the only one who doesn't understand? The problem is not the local residents who oppose it, but the politicians who are conscious of their votes and jump on it. Does it make sense to oppose dormitory construction just to get votes in elections? When I openly criticized, Mayor Won Sang-hoon said in an angry voice. The words are harsh. Building permits are the authority of the city. If it is unfair, there is a way to resolve it through litigation. I know. Currently, Hyeonhong University and Chongqing University are in administrative litigation over the dormitory issue. But how many years do you think it will take for this process to be over? The mayor, and the local council members will not know what will happen after their tenure is over anyway. But what about the students who are going back and forth between the Gazawan and the semi-basement right now? Moderator Song Suk-hoon said. Calm down, you. We will pause the discussion for a moment, and from now on, we will have time to ask and answer questions with the audience. University students asked Mayor Won Sang-hoon. This is Kim Pil-sung, a third-year student at Hyeonhong University. This photo is of the studio I live in now, and black mold has grown on one wall due to dew condensation. Do you know what the monthly rent for this house is? The deposit is 5 million won and 600,000 won including management fee. Another friend who luckily entered the dormitory lives in a better place than me for 300,000 won. I know how hard it is for our college students. We will collect everyone's opinions and resolve those issues through dialogue and communication. This is Min Ji-yeon, a first-year student at Songnak University. The boiler doesn't work well, the window locks are broken, so every time I ask the landlord to fix it, they ignore me as a young student. There were such difficulties. We will work with the ward office and community center to improve it. The college students talked about the difficulties of housing and the need for dormitories, and Mayor Won Sang-hoon responded with a blunt answer. This time it was my turn. A middle-aged woman spoke with her microphone. This is Kim Suk-ja from Siadeemun-gu. I am absolutely against dormitories. The child is currently attending elementary school, and there is an elementary school in front of the dormitory site. But wouldn't it be a big problem for children's safety if we started construction to build a dormitory there? I tilted my head. I'm saying I don't understand what you're saying right now, but is there a risk of hurting children if you do construction there? Of course. Elementary school students pass by on their way to and from school. How dangerous would it be? It also blows a lot of dust. Then even if I want to give up building the dormitory and build a cultural center and sports center that local residents can use for free on the site, shouldn't it be done because it can cause problems for the safety of children going to and from school? Oh no. That's fine. Reluctantly, the middle-aged woman next to him accepted the microphone. I'm Sui's mother, Cha So-hyun from Gangbuk-gu. Our child is now in elementary school and college students behave affectionately around the dormitory, which is not good for education and looks a bit like that. It's not good for college students to be educated, and it looks a bit like elementary school students wandering around. What? I looked at the material and said, do you know how many motels there are near the site? 6 in a 500-meter radius alone. If you are concerned about the negative impact on the education of elementary school students due to the act of affection, shouldn't all nearby motels be closed? Are you saying it can be a motel but not a dormitory? So if I tell you to build a motel here, won't you object? If students smoke in front of us, how about our children's health? I wasn't crazy. Anyone who has heard of it would think that the moment you inhale cigarette smoke while walking down the street, you will get lung cancer. Isn't that the original college town? A one-room village has already been formed, and the students living there must have smoked. So have you neglected our children's health? Oh, that's it. If it's for the health of the children, shouldn't it be necessary to push out the one-room village and expel college students to another place? I said, looking at Mayor Won Sang-hoon. What do you think, Mayor? Citizens are concerned about the health of their children. Are you thinking of demolishing the studio around the elementary school? That's an extreme opinion. We have to solve problems through dialogue and communication. Gnomes conversation and communication. At this point, I would like to make a great compromise by creating a social consensus mechanism to decide whether or not to wrap it in someone else's house. Ancestral rights. I am Malja Choi from Mapogu. Our residents are not against the dormitory itself. However, if you want to build a dormitory, you have to invest in amenities for the local residents as well. What will happen to the residents if you only want to build a dormitory with your daughter? The people sitting together nodded their heads as if sympathizing. Perhaps this is the true intention of everyone. If you oppose for the sake of opposition, you think you can get anything. I just cut it off. I will tell you clearly so that you do not have unnecessary expectations in the future. If I didn't build the dormitory, I didn't build it, so I don't intend to give any benefits to the area. At my words, she screamed angrily. What did you say? Are you saying that the residents only want to embrace the hate facilities? Then our women's association will oppose it to the end. I nodded. Yes. Opposed to the end. Moderator Song Suk-hoon said. One of the main issues in this agricultural struggle is the housing right of college students and the right of renters to survive. Then we will listen to the opinions of those who rent business in the university district. On one side sat an old man. One of them, an old man, grabbed the microphone and said, I am Chul-soo Park, who runs a rental business in front of Sahan University. And he is currently the chairman of the Seoul City One-Room Rental Association Committee. Why are there so many organizations in Korea? The old man said in a loud voice. If a large conglomerate builds a dormitory, is it more than just telling the elderly people like us to die, earning a daily income from rental business? For the sake of livelihood, the city should never allow dormitories. So, there is nothing wrong with building the building itself, but you are saying that it shouldn't be used as a dormitory that is rented out to students at a low price, right? Yes. Then there will be no problem if we build the building and not rent it out? What do you mean? It is literally. If the dormitory says no, I will build a building on the site and then rent it out to no one until it wears out and collapses on its own. What? I have no intention of selling the land. If the dormitory is not available, we will build the building and leave it alone, and if the building cannot be built, we will leave it in ruins forever. The land purchased to build the dormitory is a net land adjacent to the university. Which company would just play around with the site? But I have a lot of money, so that's okay. You have to sell it to get a few pennies. However, if there are buildings or vacant lots in the neighborhood that are not maintained and are falling down, it would be very bad to see. The old man shouted with his face reddened. Where is the young laborer who is threatening with no frills? Did your parents teach you that? The family is not touching. It is live now. Please refrain from saying such things. The moderator stopped him, but the old man continued to run rampant. You're talking about an adult. That's arrogant. I looked straight at the old man and said calmly, I don't know how much the old man owns, but I will buy it for 10 billion won right now. Are you okay then? What? 100 billion. Yes. 10 billion. The wide-eyed old man asked in a soft voice as if when he was angry. Hey, is that really true? I said with a smile. No. It was a joke trying to lighten the mood. At those words, the old man's face turned bright red. Read more at wuxiax.com. This child dares to make fun of an adult. Gagging. The old man suddenly grabbed the back of his neck and fell. Isn't it the president's signature performance to fall by the back of his neck? Other elderly people around them shouted, supporting the old man. Are you okay? Hey. This will kill people. Is it okay to kill people just because I have a lot of money? Kill me too, you bastard. In case something like this could happen, the emergency medicine department of Seosang Hospital was on standby. Doctors and nurses rushed to take the old man's blood pressure and pulse. The doctor looked at the old man carefully and then said, There is nothing wrong. His blood pressure is a little high, but within the normal range. Then the old man cried and cried. Gosh. I'm dying. However, he was immediately taken to the hospital just in case. The old man continued to shout as he was carried away. Jin-ho Kong kills people. When he hears a loud voice, he is very reassured. While cleaning the hall for a while, the audience suddenly began to roar. He was all looking at their phones and chatting about something. The staff quickly delivered the material, and moderator Song Suk-hoon looked at the material and said, "Wait. I just got the news, and OTK company has announced a basic science support plan along with the establishment of the Haman Foundation." I nodded. Yes. We are planning to raise a KRW 1 trillion fund to invest in Korea's basic science fields. We plan to provide scholarships to students in basic science research and experiments, and to establish the center and related departments. Companies often support university research and experimentation. Usually, it is to obtain necessary data or to achieve results. However, we plan to invest 1 trillion won solely for the development of basic science at no cost. This was the largest amount of private scientific support. Moderator Song Suk-hoon said. That's great, but is there any reason to announce this during the discussion? Yes. There is. This is to say that if a building permit is not obtained for at least one of the candidate dormitory sites in Seoul within a week, the 1 trillion won support plan will be completely scrapped. Mayor Won Sang-hoon was surprised by my words. Come on, wait. What do you mean? What does that have to do with dorms? I asked him. Why not? Don't you need to solve the housing problem first to study and conduct research and experiments? What kind of basic science would you push students to develop on a board where even housing could not be solved? The mayor has always said that the country develops only when science advances, and he expressed his ambition to nurture Seoul into a cutting-edge science city. Now 1 trillion won of basic science support is in the hands of the mayor. What would you like to do? Mayor Won Sang-hoon didn't say anything and just broke out in a cold sweat. The discussion continued, and Kang Jin-ho poured out his remarks as if determined. I understand the dislike of having a hate facility in my front yard, she said. However, if it is a landfill or a factory that blows dust, what is the problem with rental housing, dormitories, special schools and fire stations in the neighborhood? Local selfishness is also a problem, but politicians are the most at fault. In the meantime, there were no proper principles in carrying out work. I made it impossible for the residents to strongly oppose it, and I forcibly pushed on what was not supposed to be done if they did not oppose it. It is also a problem that they provided various support measures to see if they could somehow compromise if they objected. Because of this, if there is a facility that I do not like even a little, I will unconditionally oppose it first. Thinking that it's not wrong to give one more rice cake to a crying child. But if it's the right thing to do and it's necessary, someone must do it. Mayor Won Sang-hoon said, wiping his sweat with a handkerchief, when the moderator told him to make the last remark. Oh yes. I would like to suggest that the Seoul Metropolitan Government should continue dialogue and communication so that it can solve the youth dormitory problem by collecting the opinions of residents and college students, and that it should advance to a productive conclusion that can be understood by everyone and a great compromise of the people through social consensus. Then Jin-ho Kong made the last remark while looking at her camera. I want to ask the people, she said. First, is it something college students should avoid? Second, is the dormitory a hate facility? Third, do you think the environment will deteriorate if the dormitory moves into the neighborhood? If not all three, what are you against? The effect of the public discussion was immediately apparent. In a real-time viewer vote, 77% of the respondents said that they should allow the building of the dormitory, more than 3 times that of not allowing it. The Seoul Bulletin Board was flooded with comments criticizing the mayor. Mayor Won Sang-hoon was thrown out of the debate for nothing. Haha, even my soul was stolen by Kang Jin-ho. Why the hell did you go out there? Is that why you go halfway if you stay still? I'm sorry, our mayor has to prepare for the presidential election. Please come to the election. I'll do a squat exercise, happy face. Huh. Never take a picture. But I still don't understand, why are the residents against it? That's right, Jin-ho Kong. He said he would build a building on his own land with his own money, so why not do it? I live in front of Hankook University, but I am in favor of building a dormitory. I ask other residents to stop opposing for the sake of opposition. In front of City Hall, renters still flocked to protest. Mayor Won Sang-hoon wrapped his head with both hands. Why the hell did I do that? It's a complete dilemma. Jin-ho Kong never made a lie. If the dormitory permit is not received within the set date, the basic science application plan will be completely abolished. If the 1 trillion won support plan is blown away, it will be recorded as the worst political blot. Competitors will be excited to bite it. Above all, there is no justification to oppose the construction of the dormitory. If I had made an unreasonable request in conjunction with basic science support, I would have been able to refuse. However, as he said after Gangjin, I am not asking for an increase in floor area ratio, nor is it asking for preferential treatment. The problem was that the residents did not give permission because the residents objected to the building according to the law in the first place. In this situation, OTK company announced a specific basic science support plan. We are not executing 1 trillion won right away, but 100 billion won first and 50 billion won every year over the next 20 years. Decided to cooperate with. The scientific community did not hide its anticipation. Professor Haman Kim, who avoided an interview after the Nobel Prize in Chemistry was confirmed, appeared to the press and expressed his position on this matter. Science is not a hungry discipline and it shouldn't be, he said. For the development of science in Korea, the problem of students' housing rights must be resolved first. I earnestly ask that the people also support us on this issue. With the exception of some landlords and local residents, the majority of the people supported the construction of the dormitory. As the public opinion turned upside down, the opposition lawmakers who were conscious of the votes of the local residents quickly withdrew. Only Representative Ma Sang-tae of the Liberal People's Party shouts for the establishment of an Oriental Medicine hospital in the district until the end. Mayor Won Sang-hoon was in the mood to cry. Why are you doing this to me? What did I do wrong? From the beginning I had no intention of confronting Jin Hu-kong. It would have been better if Jin Hu-kong pretended to compromise or concede. She went out for no reason but she ended up going across the water with something like that. In the end, the city of Seoul decided to accept all 19 dormitory construction plans a day before the date stated by Kang Jin-hoo. When the permit was granted, the construction companies that signed the construction contract began construction at once. When the protests did not go well with the Seoul metropolitan government, studio owners and residents went to each ward office to protest. Some city councillors were conscious of their votes and agreed with them, but the mayors worked hard to avoid them. The mayor was robbed like that, so what do we do as the mayor? Although the protests from the residents decreased a bit, the demonstrations by the studio owners continued. Some block the entrance to the construction site and lie down, or even engage in physical force exercises, but either way the dormitory construction was carried out as it was. As expected, when the Seoul metropolitan government approved the permit was also dropped in Gyeonggi province and other regions, which had been on hold because of the opposition. We got together with Hyunju's sister to have dinner together. My mother also came to play with Seo Im Sumi. Regardless of their age, the two seemed to be getting along like friends. The mother and President Lim Sumi were delighted to see the child. The kid is really pretty. Our Jin-hoo was so cute when we were young. Ellie, who was listening, asked. Really, mother? Jin-hoo was very cute when he was young, wasn't he? Then, because everyone thought it was a girl. I'll show you a baby picture later. What about my portrait rights? Taekyu looked at his first nephew for a long time as he was curious. From what I can see, the baby is definitely pretty. His skin is white and his eyes are bright. Are you able to raise a child? At Taekyu's question, Hyunju's older sister shook her head. Don't talk. I'm crying so much I couldn't sleep for hours last night. I always thought that I wanted to have a baby, but I didn't know that raising a child would be this difficult. Even if you have a nanny, you must be concerned. When will you return to work? I will return as soon as the maternity leave is over. Of course, Hyunju Nuna had no intention of quitting her job. If you quit your job because a talented person like your sister gave birth, that would be a national loss. In Korea, work and parenting seem to be incompatible issues. However, if you look at the statistics of developed countries, the more women work, the higher the fertility rate is. Conversely, they avoid giving birth if they are concerned about job insecurity or career interruption due to childbirth. Perhaps because of this, Korea's fertility rate is the lowest among OECD countries. Despite the circumstances, the government is telling people to have children first. When the baby started crying again, Henry ran and held the baby. He is so skillful that he cannot be considered a novice father. Hyunju Nuna looked at us and said, "This time another big thing happened. It's a big deal. It's just building a dormitory. If you do anything in Korea, it won't be a big deal. I must have been insulted again. Seeing this question, it seems like you haven't seen the news or the internet much. I must have been busy watching the kids. Taekyu patted my shoulder and said, "Of course. When I search for his name on the portal site, all kinds of swear words come up with related searches. I won't be able to speak because I'm afraid Jian will be shocked if I hear it." I'm shocked to hear it too. After taking over unsung trucks, Karis continued to experiment with unmanned trucks. Logistics trucks that run on a fixed route at a constant speed were the first field to be applied unmanned. Carlos, who had already completed several experiments, went to public demonstrations. The platooning technique in which 5 trucks platooned in a row was astonishing. If the car in front reacts after the car in front applies the brake or accelerator, the distance narrows or widens. However, if information is transmitted to the vehicle behind when the vehicle in front is moving, the vehicle can slow down or speed up almost at the same time. The safe distance for platooning is usually about 15 meters, but even in case of sudden operation, it did not widen more than 10 meters, and even if the gap widened, it quickly narrowed again. The platooning reduces aerodynamic drag and has the effect of reducing fuel consumption by more than 10% compared to driving by an experienced truck driver. Read more at wuxiax.com. The autonomous driving experiment across the Great Lakes was broadcast live through a video site. There was a person sitting in each truck just in case, but they didn't do anything. Experiments assuming other cars cut in and various accident situations also passed without any problems. When the fuel ran out halfway, the trucks entered the rest area side by side. I left immediately after filling up. After driving 500 miles, the loaded trucks arrived at their destination, a warehouse outside Detroit. Everyone who was waiting was greeted with applause. Daryl said on the spot, "The commercialization of driverless trucks will dramatically change the logistics system in the future." This has provoked strong arguments for and against in the United States. Karos, ushering in the era of driverless cars. Strategy. Karis has successfully finished driving a logistics truck. Karo has issued hundreds of patents on platooning and driverless vehicles, while obtaining temporary driverless licenses in Michigan, where it is headquartered, and Illinois, Indiana, Ohio and Pennsylvania included in the Rust Belt, California. And Nevada and New York are pending approval. Driving on the road without a driver is now a reality. Some people are concerned about car accidents. Such concerns are natural, as there have been several accidents in which the driver was injured or the pedestrian was hit by an error in the autonomous driving technology. However, the risks of new technologies tend to be exaggerated. When cars first came out, it felt like a news topic when cars hit people. Even though the wagon caused more accidents. It is the same now. Countless traffic accidents occur every day. Accidents caused by a human-driven car are treated as insignificant, but accidents caused by autonomous driving become a huge issue. However, if you look at the statistics, the probability that autonomous driving will cause an accident is less than 5% compared to humans. It is also true that autonomous driving does not drive drunk or drowsy like humans, nor does it do anything else while driving. The same goes for OWL that controls driverless trucks. Unlike other truck drivers, they don't sleep, they don't rest, they don't eat. No pay, no strikes. If all logistics trucks become unmanned, accidents will be reduced and costs will be reduced. There is no reason why companies won't welcome it. If the logistics cost is reduced, the product price will also be cheaper, which is welcome from the point of view of consumers. But not everyone is happy. One of the problems is the job of 2 million truck drivers in the United States alone. The National Truck Drivers Association has already foretold strikes and demonstrations, claiming job security and cancellation of driverless truck driving licenses. This is just the beginning. It is clear that driverless vehicles will gradually expand their scope. For those who are forced to drive to and from work, that may be welcome, but for those whose job is to drive, it is not. After all the truck drivers lose their jobs, who's next? If you were a taxi driver, a bus driver, or an EVAR crew, would you still be able to continue your work in 10 years? Seosung Electronics has a stake in Karis, and Seosung SB has a stake in TS Company, which produces OTK batteries. Therefore, buying these two stocks was like an indirect investment in Karis and TS Company. When Karis' unmanned truck launch plan was announced, the stock price of Seosung Electronics broke again. Of course, Most of the electronic equipment mounted on the truck was supplied by Susong Electronics. Concerns over a peak in the semiconductor market have dissipated as the spread of autonomous vehicles has increased much faster than expected. The market cap of Susong Electronics continued to grow, and Susong SB also overtook CL Chemical to enter the top 5. Investors who bought these two stocks early cheered, but those who did not sighed. Listed companies are valued by market participants, though that's not necessarily true. On the other hand, the value of unlisted companies can only be estimated by analyzing various conditions. Usually the last invested amount is the standard. If an investor bought a 5% stake for $100,000, it would have a market cap of $2 million and so on. However, Keris does not receive any external investment except for OTK Company, the parent company. The only external investment received was an exchange of shares with Susong Electronics. Fund managers analyzed the value of Keris through the stock price of Susong Electronics. At the beginning of the year, Keris market capitalization was estimated at $150 billion. But now it's raised to $300 billion. This is higher than the combined market caps of Toyota, Nikola, GM, Ford, and Daimler AG. There were talks of high valuations and bubbles, but most responded that even this was cheap. AD1 and AD2 have been very successful. Unmanned logistics trucks have entered the commercialization stage, and new electric vehicles are about to be released at the end of the year. Unlike other companies, Keris has vertical production capacity through its own factories and affiliates for autonomous driving software, electric vehicles and batteries. Experts predict that next year's sales of Keris will exceed 4 million units. In any country, automobiles are a key industry and they are responsible for huge employment. Because of this, everyone moved quickly so as not to fall behind. Germany, Japan, and China have granted temporary licenses for driverless cars to their automakers despite opposition from the transportation industry. However, there was no obvious competitor to face Keris. Zhou postponed all new car launches after the technology hijacking incident, and some companies abandoned the first-mover strategy and adopted the fast-follower strategy. As Keris's value was re-evaluated, the fortune of OTK company CEO Kong Jin who also increased significantly. His estimated fortune is about $300 billion, more than 3 times that of AMZ CEO Jake Byron, and comparable to the richest men in history John Rockefeller and Andrew Carnegie. That's crazy. Can one person have that much wealth? At this point, shouldn't the United States come forward and naturalize it? Is it really necessary? After all, after the earthquake, all of my assets are in the United States. I'm just a black-haired American. You've been to the military, haven't you? After this, after the earthquake, I will feed Korea by myself. When an article about the commercialization of Keris unmanned logistics truck was published, the transportation industry around the world was shocked. In particular, the Korean taxi industry was taken aback. Ride-sharing, which started with eVare, has become a global trend. In addition to eVare, several companies in various countries such as Lyft, Dada Chuxing and Crab are competing fiercely. In the meantime, various attempts have been made in Korea. eVare once entered the Korean market, but was expelled due to opposition from taxi drivers and illegal controversy. But that doesn't end there. Startups have entered the ride-sharing service market by taking advantage of the exceptions of the Transportation Business Act. Data started the service with an 11-seater vehicle, aiming to allow driver mediation when renting a van with 11 or more seats, and Laxina 2 Plus made a carpool service by allowing paid transportation when commuting to and from work. Although these services are legal, taxi drivers still protested strongly. When NextK tried to enter the carpooling business, a taxi driver made the extreme choice of self-immolation. The government tried to negotiate several times, but the taxi industry refused to even participate in the discussion. Carpooling or anything else, allowing ride-sharing services is absolutely unacceptable. In the end, due to strong opposition, NextK decided to put the business on hold. At least the New Politics Party is pretending to have a discussion, but the Liberal National Party lawmakers lashed out at the government and took the side of taxi drivers. In addition, he introduced a bill to completely delete Article 34, Paragraph 2 of the Transport Business Act, which allows carpooling and drew the support of taxi drivers. If the bill is passed, all related startups will have to close their businesses. Rather, if the whole world does not allow ride-sharing services together, there will be no problem. However, most countries have allowed it, and some have grown to the level of large corporations and entered the competition for future cars based on the data and capital they have accumulated. In this situation, can only Korea remain as the Galapagos? Dada Chuxing, made with the investment of Allegheny and Wechant, declared that it would advance mainly in areas where there are already Chinese. He also expressed a position to allow Korea to operate Dada Chuxing for Chinese tourists. It is intended to enter the Korean market through Ukers. At first it will be aimed at domestic tourists, but then it will serve other foreign tourists and foreigners living in Korea, and later, it will gradually expand its scope to Koreans as well. According to the current Transportation Business Act, it is legal to arrange drivers for foreigners. Therefore, there is no legal basis for stopping it. Deleting the relevant provisions may be enough. But what if the Chinese government will ban group tours in Korea? Can I still oppose it? In the midst of intensifying conflicts over ride-sharing services, driverless cars have now appeared. From a taxi standpoint, ride-sharing services are a competitor, but driverless cars are a killer. Seosung Electronics has a stake in Keris, and Seosung SB has a stake in TS Company, which produces OTK batteries. Therefore, buying these two stocks was like an indirect investment in Keris and TS Company. When Keris' unmanned truck launch plan was announced, the stock price of Seosung Electronics broke again. Of course, most of the electronic equipment mounted on the truck was supplied by Seosung Electronics. Concerns over a peak in the semiconductor market have dissipated as the spread of autonomous vehicles has increased much faster than expected. The market cap of Seosung Electronics continued to grow, and Seosung SB also overtook CL Chemical to enter the top 5. Investors who bought these two stocks early cheered, but those who did not sighed. Listed companies are valued by market participants, though that's not necessarily true. On the other hand, the value of unlisted companies can only be estimated by analyzing various conditions. Usually, the last invested amount is the standard. If an investor bought a 5% stake for $100,000, it would have a market cap of $2 million and so on. However, Keris does not receive any external investment except for OTK Company, the parent company. The only external investment received was an exchange of shares with Seosung Electronics. Fund managers analyzed the value of Keris through the stock price of Seosung Electronics. At the beginning of the year, Keris market capitalization was estimated at $150 billion. But now it's raised to $300 billion. This is higher than the combined market caps of Toyota, Nikola, GM, Ford, and Daimler AG. There were talks of high valuations and bubbles, but most responded that even this was cheap. AD1 and AD2 have been very successful. Unmanned logistics trucks have entered the commercialization stage, and new electric vehicles are about to be released at the end of the year. Unlike other companies, Keris has vertical production capacity through its own factories and affiliates for autonomous driving software, electric vehicles, and batteries. Experts predict that next year's sales of Keris will exceed 4 million units. In any country, automobiles are a key industry and they are responsible for huge employment. Because of this, everyone moved quickly so as not to fall behind. Germany, Japan, and China have granted temporary licenses for driverless cars to their automakers despite opposition from the transportation industry. However, there was no obvious competitor to face Keris. Zhou postponed all new car launches after the technology hijacking incident, and some companies abandoned the first-mover strategy and adopted the fast-follower strategy. As Keris's value was re-evaluated, the fortune of OTK company CEO Kong Jin who also increased significantly. His estimated fortune is about $300 billion, more than 3 times that of AMZ CEO Jake Byron, and comparable to the richest men in history John Rockefeller and Andrew Carnegie. That's crazy. Can one person have that much wealth? At this point, shouldn't the United States come forward and naturalize it? Is it really necessary? After all, after the earthquake, all of my assets are in the United States. I'm just a black-haired American. You've been to the military, haven't you? After this, after the earthquake, I will feed Korea by myself. When an article about the commercialization of Keris unmanned logistics truck was published, the transportation industry around the world was shocked. In particular, the Korean taxi industry was taken aback. Ride-sharing, which started with Evair, has become a global trend. In addition to Evair, several companies in various countries such as Lyft, Dadachushing and Crab are competing fiercely. In the meantime, various attempts have been made in Korea. Evair once entered the Korean market, but was expelled due to opposition from taxi drivers and illegal controversy. But that doesn't end there. Startups have entered the ride-sharing service market by taking advantage of the exceptions of the Transportation Business Act. Data started the service with an 11-seater vehicle, aiming to allow driver mediation when renting a van with 11 or more seats, and Laksina 2 Plus made a carpool service by allowing paid transportation when commuting to and from work. Although these services are legal, taxi drivers still protested strongly. When NextK tried to enter the carpooling business, a taxi driver made the extreme choice of self-immolation. The government tried to negotiate several times, but the taxi industry refused to even participate in the discussion. Carpooling or anything else, allowing ride-sharing services is absolutely unacceptable. In the end, due to strong opposition, NextK decided to put the business on hold. At least the New Politics Party is pretending to have a discussion, but the Liberal National Party lawmakers lashed out at the government and took the side of taxi drivers. In addition, he introduced a bill to completely delete Article 34, Paragraph 2 of the Transport Business Act, which allows carpooling and drew the support of taxi drivers. If the bill is passed, all related startups will have to close their businesses. Rather, if the whole world does not allow ride-sharing services together, there will be no problem. However, most countries have allowed it, and some have grown to the level of large corporations and entered the competition for future cars based on the data and capital they have accumulated. In this situation, can only Korea remain as the Galapagos? Dadachushing, made with the investment of Allegheny and Wechant, declared that it would advance mainly in areas where there are already Chinese. He also expressed a position to allow Korea to operate Dadachushing for Chinese tourists. It is intended to enter the Korean market through Ukers. At first it will be aimed at domestic tourists, but then it will serve other foreign tourists and foreigners living in Korea, and later, it will gradually expand its scope to Koreans as well. According to the current Transportation Business Act, it is legal to arrange drivers for foreigners. Therefore, there is no legal basis for stopping it. Deleting the relevant provisions may be enough. But what if the Chinese government will ban group tours in Korea? Can I still oppose it? In the midst of intensifying conflicts over ride-sharing services, driverless cars have now appeared. From a taxi standpoint, ride-sharing services are a competitor, but driverless cars are a killer. Compared to logistics trucks that run mainly on highways along a fixed route, taxis have to watch the getting on and off of passengers, mainly driving in clogged downtown areas and entering narrow alleys. But it's not that big of a problem. Even if there are some initial problems, they will be resolved in no time and people will adapt quickly. Above all, driverless taxis can dramatically lower taxi costs as the driver's labor costs are reduced. If driverless taxis are half the price of conventional taxis, who will ride the conventional taxis? This meant the collapse of the taxi industry. No, it's not just about taxis. This will happen in any field where driving is a profession. Trucks, buses, ships. The subway and high-speed rail will not be safe either. The taxi industry decided on a general strike and declared that it would continue the struggle against the government to oppose ride-sharing services and driverless cars. Take you asked. Many companies, not just Karis, have been testing driverless cars before. But why are you all of a sudden? Up until now, we thought we could prevent or avoid change. Everyone knew that the kettle was on the fire. However, they are not preparing for anything, and when the water starts to boil, they seem to be startled. In a way, the backlash from the taxi industry was nothing more than announcing that the era of driverless cars had already arrived. There is no problem in Korea that is as difficult to solve as a taxi. Oversupply, low taxi fares, taxi companies, private payments, the aging of taxi drivers, the development of public transportation as an alternative to taxis, etc. There were pros and cons of the taxi strike on the internet. Other countries also share rides and autonomous and driverless cars are running, so does it make sense to ban only Korea? Then you're saying that all taxi drivers should die? So you're saying not to develop technology? Protecting existing businesses is a priority. In order to protect Nokia, we should have banned the N phone from NPL as well. After the smartphone came out, the feature phone completely went bankrupt. The size of the taxi industry in Korea is large compared to the size of the population and economy. If you take into account the tickets of taxi drivers and their families, the number is 1 million. Politicians who were conscious of their votes intervened, making it more difficult to solve the problem. Taxi drivers went on a general strike and protested across the country as predicted, while lawmakers from the Liberal National Party quickly rushed to the scene of the protest. We will definitely abolish the exception that allows carpooling at the party level. Our party will stand by taxi drivers until the end. The Liberal People's Party condemns the Hyo Chong-min regime that wipes out the taxi industry. The ruling party should stop killing the common people. Representative Lee Jong-hae was excited and raised her microphone and shouted, "Drone vehicles are at risk of being hacked and broken. How can you trust a car driven by a replacement machine? If driverless cars run on the road, it will endanger the lives and safety of your precious children and families." Taxi drivers cheered, but most responded that it was ridiculous. No, he said that he would make an unmanned tram in the constituency. How do you trust a machine-driven tram? Will the creation of unmanned trams endanger the lives and safety of the precious children and families of local residents? In the presidential election, the government said that it would invest 1 trillion won in the development of autonomous driving technology. Do you think Korea should lead the future car sector? Transfer. Lee Yong-hae's enemy is Lee Jong-hae. You put Jensei on driverless cars. The scene of the protest was broadcast live on TV. More than 100,000 taxi drivers gathered and shouted slogans. They all looked desperate as their livelihoods were at stake. Even the studio workers had their livelihoods at stake. It's a little different from that one. Those people still have the property of a building. And since the dormitory is not built on a scale that accommodates all students, even if there is a partial rent drop, it is tolerable. However, the income of taxi drivers is still low. If ride-sharing or driverless cars are allowed, profits will deteriorate dramatically. The fear that technological advances will take away human jobs and the resulting backlash from workers has been around for a long time. The Luddite movement, the John Henry anecdote, etc. I've been listening to Luddite for a while. But who is John Henry? Does it have anything to do with my brother-in-law? Will there be? This person's last name is Henry and Henry's name is Henry? It's a black worker who fought machines in the 1870s. John Henry was digging tunnels with other workers. However, when the employer tried to put the newly developed excavator into the field, the workers strongly objected. Workers claimed that humans could work faster and more perfectly than excavators, and to prove this they decided to compete with machines. The content of the match was to start digging the tunnel at the same point, and the first to break through wins, and John Henry came out as the workers' representative. People were waiting on the other side and cheering. After a half-day battle, John Henry broke through the mountain before the excavator. Seeing this, the workers applauded and cheered. But that was his last. John Henry, who used all his might, died on the spot. Taekyu rubbed his eyes and asked, "Is it true?" Considering that there are multiple versions, it is highly likely to be a folk tale. Read more at wuxiax.com. Since it is a famous story, it is always mentioned when discussing the problem of jobs due to technological development. Regardless of whether it was a fairy tale or a true story, at least humans and machines were able to compete. But now even that is impossible. No one dares to dig faster than a POC or to calculate faster than a computer. However, it has been believed that there are areas unique to humans that machines cannot do. However, with the advancement of technology, machines are now starting to enter these areas as well. Driving, medical, legal, finance, creative writing, translation, and more. So, should AL treatment be banned for doctors' jobs? Even the accuracy of diagnosis and analysis is much higher than that of specialists. As the number of driverless vehicles increases, the traffic environment greatly improves, and the probability of accidents becomes even smaller. The number of fatalities and injuries due to traffic accidents will also be drastically reduced. Should we not introduce driverless cars even in this case? No matter how much you oppose it, no matter how much you block it, someone must do it. Britain invented the steam engine and automobile, but to protect the wagon business, it enacted the Red Flag Act, a law that prohibits cars from running faster than wagons. Result: automobile developers and investors all fled abroad, which boosted the German and American auto industry. The UK repealed this law belatedly, but the initiative in the automobile industry has already passed to other countries. All British automobile brands were sold abroad and Britain became the largest automobile importer in Europe. It goes without saying that the wagon industry that they tried so hard to protect went bankrupt, and all the drivers lost their jobs. Taekyu crossed his arms and nodded his head. It's a difficult problem. So what's the solution? I don't know. When I shook my head, Taekyu was startled. What? Didn't you think of all the ways? No, what are you going to say to me? As there is a limit to what a single company can do, the state and companies must work together to solve problems. Fortunately, the United States continued to prepare for this. Karis has set up a fund to support truck drivers who will lose their jobs, while revealing a plan to give priority to the unemployed. And Ronald ordered a federal-level job action plan. However, Korea did not take any action. This is because the politicians have only been eyeing the votes. After the rally, taxi drivers marched toward the Sogang Bridge. For this, one lane was completely controlled. Then suddenly something unexpected happened. Some taxi drivers climbed up the arch without safety equipment, opened up banners and shouted, "Call me after Gangjin. Otherwise I will jump off the bridge." There were 3 taxi drivers who climbed the arch of the Seogang Bridge. The banner they spread out read, "Taxi companies' right to survive. Get rid of ride-sharing. Discard driverless cars." Neighbors as well as the police persuaded them to come down, but they kept shouting, "Kaljin Hukong. I will talk to Kong Jin-Hu face-to-face with her." The police who were controlling the protest tried to climb up, but were forced to stop by threats of jumping into the river. Some media outlets even flew drones to relay the situation in real time. Taekyu, who was watching the news, said with his arms crossed, "Then why are you doing this to me? You didn't say that you were going to introduce driverless taxis to Korea right away." Is it just to get me in and make an issue? Seriously, there is no neighborhood book like mine in Korea. The protesters on the arch kept shouting that they would jump if I didn't come. Even if you say that, will it end without any problem? At that moment something flashed in front of my eyes. What else is this? There must be an intruder, so you want me to rescue you? What if I don't rescue you? After a while, when he came to his senses, Taekyu asked, "What is Yeji? Where are you going to invest?" I picked up my coat. "I'll go out for a while." "Where are you going?" I pointed to the TV screen. "There." Taekyu asked irrationally, "Why are you going there?" "You say that if I don't come I will jump off. I have to save people and see." "Hey, do you really have to jump from that height?" He really jumped. I sighed and told him the wisdom I had just seen. Team was surprised. "How do you rescue them? Can't I convince you well?" Before I left, I picked up the receiver and instructed team leader Jong Ki-hong. "Take a look at the people on the news right now." I thought as I was driving. In the past, it was thought that advances in technology would free people from work. However, even in today's technologically advanced days, people are working harder, far from being liberated. Like John Henry fighting the excavator, millions of workers are still struggling to prove themselves better against the machine. Fast food part-timers fight kiosks, factory workers fight production robots, and transporters fight driverless cars. The financial sector is no exception to this. Artificial intelligence is being introduced one after another for corporate valuation and financial statement analysis, threatening the jobs of analysts and fund managers. If you lose the battle, the penalty of losing your job awaits. This is where Korea's problems are revealed. The first is the lack of a social safety net, and the second is the lack of jobs. Since there is no safety device for job loss, livelihoods are threatened as soon as they are cut off, and it is difficult to find a job and find a job again. This is why everyone has no choice but to fight to the extreme. Vehicle traffic was originally scheduled to resume after the march was over, but lane control continued due to a high-altitude siege. It's time to leave work in a little while, and by then traffic around the area will be paralyzed. I got out of the car and the people around were startled. "Come on, wait. That person? Could it be Kong Jin-Hu? What? Are you really here?" The media outlets who were covering the story all turned their cameras to me. "Seo Kong Jin-Hu, please say something. Are there any plans to introduce driverless cars in Korea? What do you think about the backlash from the taxi industry?" The bodyguards blocked the approaching reporters with their bodies. I ignored the interview request and headed down the arch. A scene I had just seen on TV caught my eye. I said into the megaphone. Good morning. This is Jinhu Kong. I came here because I was told to come. The taxi drivers who were sitting on the arch looked bewildered. I guess I didn't know I was coming here. There are many cases of workers protesting and shouting for the boss to come out, but there are no cases where the president actually comes out. After a while, a call came from above. We will not respond to any dialogue. When do you shout to call me, and when you come, why are you like this? Anger rises, however, he said as calmly as possible, as he might really jump if he gets angry. You want to talk face to face? Come down and talk to me. I will never go down until our requirements are met. It doesn't come down easily either. What are the requirements? In order to guarantee the survival of the taxi industry, immediately delist Karos, who developed driverless cars. I answered calmly. Karos was not listed. It is a privately held company. How do I delist an unlisted company? If you don't accept our requirements anyway, I'll jump. There's no conversation at all. The police came and said. I tried to convince him for 2 hours, but to no avail. It went up suddenly, so it will come down when your stamina runs out. It would be nice, but before that there is a risk that someone can jump into it. You can get this by persuading it with words, right? Dozens of cameras around me glared at me. Maybe my face is on the air right now. The cell phone had just been ringing non-stop. I decided to make the call later and put it on silent. I can save you, right? If you don't want to come down, I will go up. We talk there. People around me were shocked by my words. Lee Cheol-jin, the head of the security team, said, No, sir. Will they even push me away? It may not be, but there is one way. And it's my job to protect you in such a situation. But shouldn't we really stop people from jumping? I persuaded him several times, but when I did not give up, team leader Lee Cheol-jin said as if there was nothing he could do. Then I will go with you. Is it okay if you have a family? He smiled and accepted my words. Will they even push me away? I laughed bitterly. It is. And if you have to protect your employer, won't you be able to protect your family as well? Then let's go together. Despite the reluctance of the people around me and the police, I climbed up the arch with team leader Cheol-jin Lee. I don't even know what this is doing. I have passed the Han River Bridge countless times, but this is the first time I have climbed to such a high place. As humans cannot live without water, most large cities are formed along rivers. However, it is rare to find a city with such a large river. Strictly speaking, in the past it was outside of Seoul, so Gangnam was developed and brought into the city. Just as the sun was setting, the Han River was colored red little by little. Gangnam and Gangbuk stretched around the bridge were like a painting. Seeing it here is pretty cool. But when I looked down, that thought completely changed. An invisible wave roamed from below. I'm also trying to develop a phobia of heights that I didn't have. No, is it natural to feel fear at this height? The taxi drivers who were holding a high-altitude siege were startled and did not know what to do. What? Are you really up? I looked at them and said, Let me ask you one thing first. Was it your will to come up here, or was it ordered by the company? Then a middle-aged man blushed and shouted. Wow, what do you mean? Before arriving here, I got a call from team leader Jong Ki-hong, who all belonged to a corporate taxi company. The fact that they even brought a banner means that it was planned in advance, not accidental. Team leader Jong Ki-hong found the company that made this banner in that short time. When he asked, he said that, to his surprise, the boss placed an order and he even called the stationery himself. At my words, the other two made excuses as if they were stabbed in the corner. Rather than being instructed. I was told that if I do this, the taxi industry will support it just as the OTK company supports the scientific community. The company did it too. It is not only the taxi drivers who are concerned about the decrease in profits, but also the taxi companies. You didn't tell me to jump, did you? No, the boss said that you have to perform like that to make an impact. It's safe to fall on the water anyway, and there are a lot of people, so you'll be rescued soon. What crazy is this? I said, stupid. Don't you think about surface tension? Jumping from this height would cause a fracture or rupture the moment your body collided. Even if the body is not injured, if you lose your mind from the shock, you will drown immediately. Did you not read the article that one of the two people who jumped from the Han River Bridge lost their life? Hey, don't lie. Well, there may be a reason that most of them jumped for suicide. Either way, it's such a dangerous thing to do. At my words, their faces turned to contemplation. Since you didn't want a simple protest, Did you do a self-indulgent performance to get the maximum support from the OTK company and the government? No, if that's the case, the boss himself jumps himself or asks the staff to do what? Why are there so many crazy people in the world? Team leader Lee Cheol-jin's pocket contains the broadcaster's microphone and the radio from the police. The fact that the company ordered it must have been on the air now. I know everyone's opinions well, so let's go down and talk about it. The two of them holding the banner seemed to follow my words. Then another man opened his eyes and shouted. Shut up. After all, our jobs are all blown away. If there is a driverless car, you will sit on a cushion, but our wife and children will starve to death. It's not wrong. As a result, even if it is beneficial to everyone, there is a sharp division between those who benefit and those who lose during the industrial transition period. It's all because of you. Without you. As I spoke, my anger exploded and I did not stop screaming and tried to run at me. Fortunately, another colleague caught him before team leader Lee Cheol-jin could even step out. Calm down. Let go of this. He slammed his colleague's arm away. In an instant, his body lost focus and stumbled violently. No. I reflexively ran and reached out for his hand. Fortunately, I was able to grab his arm just before he fell. I almost got dragged down to my body, but I was preparing for the unexpected, so I grabbed the overhang of the railing. The man hanging in the air looked down and said in a trembling voice, "Saw, please save me. Hold on tight." I pulled the man up with all my might. No matter how young I am in my 20s, it is not easy to lift an adult man by myself. Team leader Cheol-jin Lee rushed to help. He grabbed the man's body and in an instant he flashed it upwards. People watching from below cheered and applauded all at once. The man who was resurrected from the dead burst into tears, and I breathed a sigh of relief. Jin-Hoo Kong saved the life of a taxi driver who was holding a high-altitude siege. Strategy. During the march after the protest, 3 taxi drivers climbed up the arch and shouted that they would throw themselves. They shouted to call Kong Jin-Hoo, and Kong Jin-Hoo came to the scene and persuaded him by going up the arch. However, during the conversation, a taxi driver almost fell down while running at him, and Jin-Hoo Kong threw himself and caught him. In other words, he risked his life to save the lives of others in a situation that could endanger himself. Syncopation. Surprisingly, it was revealed that this was an instruction from the president of a corporate taxi company. The boss was immediately arrested by the police, but he completely denied the allegations. Haha, I shouted to come out after the gangjin, but it really came out. Wow. Are you thinking of going up there? Kong Jin-Hoo is crazy too. I watched it in real time and I was really tired. That was cool. Read more at wuxiax.com. You saved a person. You have to do this to receive the Nobel Peace Prize. Are you seeing other Chaebol presidents? There are talented people who surpass you. What is the boss bastard who ordered you to commit? Put the death penalty for committing suicide. The offense of engaging in suicide is imprisonment for not more than 10 years. Take you read the comments one by one. Say. Ellie smiled and clapped. Clap clap. You did a great job, Jin-Hoo. I am so proud. I laughed awkwardly. You're praising me right now, right? Of course. What's weird? No, your mouth is smiling, but your expression looks angry. As soon as I finished my words, Ellie began to get angry in earnest. Do you have an idea or not? There is, but... Why do people with thoughts go up there? You knew it was dangerous, didn't you? I knew. Did anyone know that? I feel like I'm hearing my mother's nagging for some reason. Is it my mood? In the midst of being scolded by Eli, her mother came running. As soon as her mother saw me, she blew me off the back smash. Damn. Ouch. Sick. Why are you going there? Do you really want to see your mother fall down? No, that's not it. I sent a desperate look to take you. Help me. Then Take You said to her mother. I think Jin-Hoo should be scolded more. This child? Ellie crossed her arms and said. But if Take You was next to you, why didn't you stop him? If Jin-Hoo is like this, shouldn't she have stopped Take You? That's... This time Take You sent me a desperate look. Help me. I answered with my eyes. Huh. Turn it off.